26th of March 2024 at 6:30 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The video will be appearing on Council's website and YouTube channel. The public gallery will not be recorded unless accidentally, and only a participant in the meeting, namely a person asking questions at public question time, will be live streamed and recorded. If you do not consent to your voice and image being recorded and live streamed to the public, then you may need to leave. By staying at this meeting, you consent to your voice and image being live streamed and recorded. No other electronic, visual or audio recording device or instrument can be used to record the proceedings of this meeting without prior written permission from the Council. Acknowledgement of country. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional owners of this land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I further acknowledge their cultural heritage, beliefs, connection and relationship with this land, which continues today. Affirmation of civic duty and responsibility. Councillor Marks, will you please read aloud the affirmation of civic duty and responsibility on behalf of councillors and officers present?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I make this affirmation in good faith and declare that I will duly, faithfully, honestly and with integrity fulfil the duties of my office for all people in the City of Belmont according to the best of my judgment and ability. I will observe the City's Code of Conduct and standing orders to ensure efficient, effective and orderly decision making within this forum. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Apologies and leave of absence. I've received an apology from Councillor VJ. Leave of absence. I note there are no councillors recorded as having a leave of absence for this meeting. Declaration of interest. Will the Senior Governance Officer please advise of those declarations made to date? Are there any financial interests?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, there are no financial interests this evening.
Disclosure of interest affecting impartiality.
Yes, we have a number of disclosures this evening. Firstly, Councillor Kulczycki for item 12.2, the community home on Abernethy Road, as he, the sole respondent to public advertising, contacted him via telephone on 2 occasions to raise their objections as to the proposed development. Councillor Sessions, item 12.2, community home, received a text message regarding this item from a resident opposing it. Mayor Rossi, item 12.5, the 2023-2024 March budget review, as he is a member of the Belmont RSL social member and a member of the past sister city delegation. Councillor Davis, item 12.5, the 23-24 March budget review, as she is a Belmont Oasis member. Councillor Sekula, item 12.5, budget review, as he is an affiliate member of the RSL and a member of the Japanese Belmont delegation. Councillor Kulczycki, item 12.5, the March budget review, as he is a member of the Ruth Faulkner Library. Councillor Davis, item 12.6, the terms of reference for the Audit and Risk Committee, as she is a committee member. Councillor Kulczycki, item 12.6, terms of reference, Audit and Risk, as he is the presiding member of the Standing Committee Audit and Risk. Councillor Sekula, item 12.6, terms of reference, as he is the deputy presiding member. Councillor Sessions, item 12.7, the terms of reference for the Executive Committee, as she is the deputy presiding member of that committee. And then Councillor Kulczycki, Councillor Davis, Councillor Sekula, all declared an interest in item 12.7 as they are committee members. Councillor Sessions, item 14.2, the staff matter, as she is a member of the Executive Committee, as long as Councillor Kulczycki, also a member of the Executive Committee, and then Mr Christie, item 14.2, as it is actually directly related to his performance. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you so much. Number 4, announcements by presiding member. I have one announcement. On the 1st of March, Natalie Carter resigned as City of Belmont councillor for personal reasons. She first joined our council in October 2021, and over the past 2.5 years, she has represented her South Ward community in a positive and collaborative way. On behalf of the City, I thank Natalie Carter for her years of service to South Ward residents and the wider community. I wish her all the very best with her future endeavours. Miss Carter's term will have ended on the 18th of October 2025. An extraordinary election for South Ward will be held to fill the vacancy in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. We will provide more information to the community on that extraordinary election as it becomes available. The disclaimer. It is 6:35. I wish to draw attention to the disclaimer notice contained within the agenda document and advise members of the public that any decisions made at the meeting tonight can be revoked pursuant to the Local Government Act of 1995. Therefore, members of the public should not rely on any decisions until formal notification in writing by council has been received. Declarations by members who have not given due consideration to all matters contained in the business papers presently before the meeting. Are there any declarations to be made by councillors? There are none. Public question time. We have responses to question time. Questions taken on notice from the ordinary council meeting of the 27th of February are noted in the agenda for Ms Hollands. Mr Harris, Ms Hollands, on behalf of the Belmont Resident Ratepayers Action Group, Mr Bell, Mr Rossellini, Mr Cardoso and Ms G. 5.2. Questions from members of the public. It is 6:36 and I open public question time and draw attention to the public gallery to the rules of public question time as written in the question time form. In accordance with section 6.4 of the Standing Orders, Local Law 2017, members of the public are reminded they must extend due courtesy and respect to both councillors and employees. Please do not use inappropriate, unobjectable or untruth expressions or expressions that reflect adversely on the character or actions of councillors or employees. If any expression is deemed inappropriate, you'll be directed to withdraw the expression and apologise. If you do not comply, I'll have to end your question. Lastly, I'd like to remind you and caution everyone present at this meeting to refrain from making defamatory statements, especially considering that these proceedings are now being live streamed. Section 6.2 of the City Standing Orders, Local Law 2007 states members of the public can ask up to 2 questions and have no more than 2 minutes per question to allow time for everyone to ask the questions before proceedings continue. However, as presiding member, tonight I will allow a maximum of 4 questions per person. Presently, I have 9 members of the public who have given prior notice to asking questions, these being Mr. Harris, Ms. Liz Hollands on behalf of Bragg, Mr. Matt Russell, Bella Scoffenstein, Jacob Paul Van Root, Adrian Bell, Martin Cardoso, Debbie Ransom. Are there any other members of the gallery who wish to ask questions? Ms. G, Vaughan Barker, and could you state your name, please? Paul Head. Thank you. Anybody else? No. Thank you very much. We'll now go to questions from the members of the public. Could Jared Harris please come forward? The CEO will answer your questions that you've submitted beforehand.
Should I read them out? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, city officers and public gallery. I'm Jared Harris of Cloverdale. The city has repeatedly cited the February 2023 OCM as the meeting in which council, pardon me, my phone has gone blank, in which council committed the city to completing the Stanton Road traffic calming project and uses this as the reason not to discuss the matter further with residents. The relevant motion instructs the city to, quote, implement temporary calming measures to be installed in 2023 between Lyle Street and Epsom Ave. Instead, the city plans to install permanent devices in 2024 and along a length of road more than triple the instructed distance. So that's not what, when, or where from the original motion. Does the city consider the Stanton Road calming project to be a faithful implementation of council's original motion?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. The city considers the Stanton Road 2nd Street low-cost urban road safety project to be a faithful implementation of the resolutions made at the 28th of February 2023 Ordinary Council meeting. The resolution referenced in the question was the last of 5 resolutions that were made pertaining to the notice of motion for Stanton Road and 2nd Street traffic. The resolution also requested that further traffic counts be undertaken and that once the Tonkin Gap project was complete, to investigate a permanent traffic solution. The investigations into the low-cost traffic calming measures were presented to elected members at an information forum on the 30th of May 2023. The presentation outlined details of the Main Roads low-cost urban road safety programme and the potential for grant funding. The Main Roads grant funding is for permanent traffic calming, which is consistent with the 3rd resolution from the February 2023 OCM and supported by Main Roads. With regards to the 4th resolution from the February 2023 Ordinary Council meeting to investigate the temporary closure of Central Avenue, the city proposes to review this option in the upcoming Redcliffe traffic modelling exercise. The city will be holding discussions with the Perth Transport Authority and Perth Airport in preparation of the traffic model, as their future plans need to be incorporated into the model. This will be the opportunity to commence discussions regarding possible closure or modifications of the Central Avenue and 2nd Street intersection. Thank you, Your Worship.
Your second question, please.
Can I follow up on that one?
Your next question, please. Thank you.
Okay. In the current budget review, 8 separate pedestrian projects have been deferred for the year with no explanation, making up about half of the budgeted projects for any non-car transport. 3 of these projects on Matheson Road were previously budgeted and delayed in the previous financial year, and they will presumably be budgeted again for a third time in a few months. Is there reason to expect these projects to be prioritised higher next year to avoid these cans being kicked even further down the road?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. A number of footpath projects have been deferred to next year due to design requirements. The footpath project for Matheson Road, for example, has been delayed due to consultation required with Perth Racing regarding their fencing requirements. These designs are nearing completion and the works will be programmed according to availability of labour and materials, most likely early in the new financial year. A number of other footpath projects are currently in design for inclusion in the 2024-25 Capital Works programme. Thank you, Worship.
Your third question, please.
Many in this room have voiced support for closing Central Avenue as the long-term solution to many of Redcliffe area's traffic issues. Focus on this has been sidelined during the Stanton traffic calming debate. What is the status of the city's investigation into closing Central Avenue, particularly in regard to stakeholder engagement, whether as permanent or trial, and can any report on that please be made public?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. As stated in response to question 1, the City will engage with Perth Airport and the Perth Transport Authority during the development of the Redcliffe traffic modelling. The potential for temporary or permanent closure of Central Avenue is one of the scenarios that can be modelled. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a fourth question?
You'll have to go on the rest of people.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Could Matt Russell please come forward?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the public gallery. My name is Matt Russell from Cloverdale. My first question is, I would like to request a review of the standing orders, specifically to remove the requirement to provide an address as part of public question time, in line with advice from the department, which suggests that an address not be required unless the person is to be written to or otherwise contacted. I believe this change could enhance the accessibility of public question time process. Could you please consider revising section 6.21A of the standing orders accordingly?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. The current standing orders requires a person asking a question at public question time is required to state their name and address. However, it has been common practice by the presiding member to provide a name and suburb. The current local government reform process, which has recently seen the issue of draft set of standardised standing orders for consultation, will still, however, require a person asking a question at public question time to provide their name and suburb or locality. Thank you, Worship.
The next question, please.
How does the City monitor compliance with the response within 10 normal working days section of the Customer Service Charter, and have there been any breaches in this section in the past year?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. The City attempts to answer all requests for information or service or questions within 10 working days so as to ensure ratepayers and residents receive optimal levels of service. The Customer Service Charter is a guide and is monitored to ensure staff meet the 10-day response timeframes. All managers are regularly reminded to respond within the timeframe established within the Charter. Thank you, Worship.
The third question, please.
Have there been any updates to the Belmont Trust land since the deliberative panel 21 months ago, and what are the next planned steps for the lands?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. Funds have been listed in the 24-25 annual budget for Council consideration to undertake the master planning and community consultation on the future use of the Belmont Trust land consistent with that deliberative panel. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hollins, please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Firstly, I do not consent to having my face live streamed, but however, at the February council meeting, Mayor Rossi made a long-winded opening speech about the meeting being live streamed and that if you didn't consent to leave now, he waited a couple of moments, and when no one left, he said that by staying you've given consent. A similar, although less toned down message was given tonight. Section 14L of the regulation reads, a local government must take reasonable steps to ensure that members of the public attending a meeting of its council are informed beforehand of the following, or as applicable, that the meeting will be publicly broadcast. We did that. So my question, what section of the Act or regulation states that if you do not give consent to the live stream, you have to leave now and advise that if you have not, that if you have remained, you've given consent?
Director of Corporate and Governance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The City is required by the Local Government Act to live stream council meetings. Public question time is a legislative component of a council meeting. The live streaming of a public question time forms part of the City's live streaming obligations under the Local Government Act and amending and associated regulations, and the City's live streaming policy is consistent with the Local Government Act.
Thank you for that answer, but you didn't answer the question. What section of the Act or regulations does it state that if you don't give consent, you have to leave the meeting?
Director of Corporate and Governance, are you able to answer that now? Take on.
Look, I'm happy to take that on notice, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
Okay. Also, section 14(1)(2)(b) of the regulation reads, if or to the extent that the recording is a video recording with audio, the quality of the recording must be sufficient to allow persons effectively to watch and listen to the deliberation and communications that are the part of the meeting's proceedings. What section states that a resident asking question is to be the star of the shows and councillors unidentifiable?
Director of Corporate and Governance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm viewing the live stream at the present time, and I can view all the councillors, all the people at the top table, including the public questioner. And I believe our policy and our actions mirror what the local government regulations require.
Thank you for that answer, but please clarify, because I've just looked at it, that the person asking the questions is more seen than the councillors.
I'm sorry. Could you please soften your tone?
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Could you please repeat it? Thank you.
I've looked at the live stream, and the live stream shows the people at the lecture more seen than the councillors. You guys are now more seeable, but the councillors are not. So again, I ask the question, why are the residents more on show than the councillors?
Director of Corporate and Governance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, the residents aren't on show, contrary to Ms Holland's comments. The only person on show is the person participating in the meeting, which is the questioner.
Speak up, please.
Is this better, Mr Rosalind?
It was
Is that
Mr
better?
Head, actually.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The person who's the questioner is on the live stream, and I would believe that they're about the same dimensions as the people at the top of the table, which is Mr Christie, the Mayor, and Mrs Dabala. They are no more prominent than anybody else within the live stream program. Thank you.
But we are more prominent than the councillors, not than the mayor. Is that correct?
Next question, please.
Okay. I note on the city's website with respect to attending the quiz, it states that that there will be residents attending and there will be cameras and video, and to please notify if you don't want that happening. So why is it that that option's available for a quiz night but not at a council meeting, please?
Director of Corporate and Governance, you're able to answer that?
Oh, well, he said I was too loud. Sorry.
No, it wasn't. It's fine. Just, yeah.
Okay. Sorry?
I'm happy to take that question on notice, Mr Mayor, because I'm not too sure what it was in the first place.
Oh, well, shall I repeat the question, Mr Mayor?
Yes, but repeat it, and then we'll take it on notice.
Okay, on the city's website with respect to the event of the quiz, there's a little thing there saying that that there will be cameras there and videos, and to please notify if you don't want to be photographed at this event. Why are we not getting the same option here for people that ask questions, please?
Director of Corporate Governance.
I'm happy to take that question on notice, Mr Mayor.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Questions on behalf of Bragg, please.
Yeah, with reference to 2.2 on the agenda tonight, we came to the meeting last week, and the officer said that at a response to the councillor, that the residents within 100 metres of this 5-storey building were notified. So I'd like to know, what's the normal practice of notifying surrounding residents when there is a development application for a 5-storey building, or for that matter anything else that affects them? Is this attitude of within the 100 metre the norm? And if so, how do you seriously expect any feedback for residents, or is that why it's left at 100 metres?
I'll get your response from the Director of Development and Communities, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll take the question on notice.
Your next question, please.
A clarification for one that might be able to be given by the Director here. We've heard a bit about Stanton Road. Apparently there's some comment going around that the new traffic calming on Stanton Road could potentially cause injuries to residents with bad backs and all this sort of thing when they're driving down there. So I'd like to know exactly how many of these calming devices are going to be put in on Stanton Road. And also, if the city was to knock it back and change their mind, what, if any, effect would that have on the relationship with main roads?
Director of Infrastructure Service, you're able to answer Bragg's second question.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. In relation to the actual traffic treatments themselves, there are planned to be two raised safety platforms at the intersections of Mooring and Lyall, 4 new mid-block safety platforms, they're the same as the existing 2, and 11 safety speed cushions, which are not speed humps. They are mid-lane, just requiring drivers to position themselves properly and slow down. There are, in fact, no speed humps in any of the plans for Stanton and 2nd Street, as there has been installed on Mooring Street.
And it's not likely to cause injury?
Are you able to answer that question?
Yeah, we've engaged with the Public Transport Association, or Authority, sorry, with regards, and the actual treatments themselves have been designed specifically not to be the abrupt speed hump type. And I mean, this question was asked last month, and there's a detailed answer in the minutes from last month.
Okay, thank you for that.
Third question, go ahead.
Okay,
please.
On page 259 of tonight's agenda, which is the item of the annual electors meeting, it is noted a question was raised by an elector which asked what Councillor Sekula spent $12,000 for personal development. The response was Councillor Sekula attended to the Signature Leadership Program, which was approved following the normal city processes of elected members' professional development expenditure requests. So my question, just what is the normal process for approving training? Who approved it, and why was it approved when, according to the training register, the course was from February until November 23, when Councillor Sekula was on his leave of absence until May 23?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Worship. The approval process for elected member professional development is so much that a form is filled in. The elected member needs to demonstrate the benefit of attending that professional development, and that is signed off by the Mayor and also by myself as CEO. And with regard to Councillor Sekula's leave of absence, that leave of absence applies to the council meetings only. Thank you, Your Worship.
Any further question?
Yeah, just one with regards to the honorary freeman. I notice In December, it was on the agenda. And what I wanted to know was, it was a confidential item. It didn't go through in December, and it came up again in February. So I'd like to know, did in the policy, it says it's confidential, but was the person who made the nomination both times the same person, and was the person that was nominated the owner agreement advised that it was confidential?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. As you stated previously, it's a confidential matter and I'm not at liberty to discuss that.
So you can't even tell me if the person was the...
Sorry, we're not here to debate.
I wasn't debating.
You can't. Well, ask your question and
Okay, so then in that case, my question would be, did the council find out who nominated the position for honorary freeman, or will we have to go through FOI or get the department to look at it?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. As I stated previously, the matter is confidential and I'm not at liberty to share any of the information. A report was provided to councillors relating to this matter.
Including
very
the name
much.
of the nominator.
Thank you very much. Bella Scafenstein.
Yes, good evening, councillors, everybody. I'm Bella Scharfenstein from Redcliffe. Oh, thank you. The City of Belmont is a unified entity composed of contiguous suburbs with roads that are supposed to efficiently connect residents and businesses to each other. Stanton Second is a primary distributor road connecting Ascot and Redcliffe residents to Greater Belmont, Belmont residents and businesses to the airport, an important employment and shopping destination, and Belmont commuters to the Redcliffe train station. The City has made a major decision affecting thousands of its residents and ratepayers because it appears to consider each area in isolation from another, and so only informs a small pocket of the population of crucial far-reaching decisions. Such has been the case with Stanton and Second Electors, where only a small number of residents receive direct communication about the council's decision. We have gathered over 500 signatures for our petition to pause, if not revoke, the decision to install an unacceptable number of Electors in this street. People have been astounded at the city's decision, and more so that they were not informed, because they do not live in the immediate vicinity of Stanton Street. My question is, could the city explain the rationale for its practice of viewing one area of Belmont in isolation from another, thereby only informing a small number of residents about the Electors decision, while excluding the majority of residents who will use this road and are using this road daily and will be negatively impacted by the installation of an excessive number of traffic calming devices?
Director of Infrastructure Services.
In relation to, and we just answered the question in relation to the type and nature of the actual traffic calming measures themselves. So we wouldn't necessarily agree with the characterisation of those. With relation to the policies in relation to community engagement and the extent of that, I'll take that on notice and we'll answer.
CEO wants to add something.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to try and answer part of that question if I can. The decision to install the traffic calming on Stanton Road was made as part of a motion at the council meeting back in November 2023. And that was on the back of significant complaints that we received about the volume of traffic and rat running on Epsom Avenue and Stanton Road leading to the airport. The traffic counts at that time had indicated that although the main roads hierarchy has a desirable volume of 6,000 vehicles per day, there was at that time 12,000 vehicles per day on Stanton Road. And that was the reason why Council considered the resolution and made an amendment to that resolution back in February. Recent traffic counts prior to or just around about Christmas time had that volume at 16,000 vehicles, an increase of 4,000 on top of the 12. What we have seen now is with the Tonkin Gap project opening and coming to a conclusion, that the numbers are going back down, and we believe that the last traffic count had around about 12,000 vehicles back on Stanton Road, and a reduction of about 500 vehicles per day on Lyle Street. So that was the rationale behind the council decision, and the council were supportive of that as a result of the increasing volumes and rat running and the impact that was having on the residents on Stanton and associated with the schools on that area. Thank you, Your Worship.
Next question.
Okay. This is more about how you do your consultation. So if this practice of segregation is governed by state or local government policy, we ask that the city take action to change this to require greater inclusivity and therefore broader, more thorough, transparent and documented processes of consultation to ensure similar debacles to the one currently unfolding do not occur. And if there are such policies that govern your consultation processes to segregate pockets of the community, can you advise what they are specifically?
Director of Infrastructure Services.
I'm not aware of any policies in relation to segregation of the community.
So,
Thank you. I'll check. No, I'll just check with the CEO. 1 second. Mr. CEO?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. We have a stakeholder engagement strategy, and we certainly do not exclude anyone that would be impacted by decisions or actions that would be undertaken by the city. As I mentioned previously, Council resolved at the February 2023 meeting to amend the officer recommendation and include the installation of traffic calming on Stanton Road. When Council resolved that at the meeting, it's my obligation then to implement that decision. That decision was not to engage in community consultation to determine whether they were needed. The decision of Council was quite clear, was to install traffic calming in an attempt to reduce the rat running on Epsom and Stanton Road. Thank you, Worship.
Any further questions?
yes, I have two more. The permanent solution as regarding traffic calming measures seems to only have been Electors. What other options were considered by Main Roads and the City of Belmont? And if not, why? And if not, how does the City of Belmont and Main Roads know that this Electors is the best solution to maintain a fully and optionally functioning distributor road? Or was this just decided on the cost factor? Because it certainly is not going to be a fully functioning distributor road when these traffic calming measures go in.
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. There was a lot of consultation and work done with Main Roads with regarding, obviously, the decision that was made under that Electors programme. But what I'll do is I'll take that on notice and ensure I provide a comprehensive response. Thank you, Worship.
Okay, so one more. In regard to what Mario was saying about what the type of speed or traffic calming devices there were. So is 40 kilometres per hour a safe and comfortable speed to drive over these Electors? Or will vehicles, particularly buses, have to slow down to below 40 kilometres an hour? And what is that speed going to be? 30, 40, 10 or below?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. There was consultation, and as the Director stated, they met with PTA on site, and Main Roads were the one that approved it. And if Main Roads felt that there was going to be any issues with how smooth it was to transition over the traffic calming that's being installed, they would not have approved it. Thank you, Worship.
I just to clarify, is 40 kilometres an hour going to be the constant speed that people are going to be able to travel on that road over these speed devices?
Mr. CEO?
Or not?
Thank you, Worship. Well, 40 kilometres an hour is what will be posted, and obviously drivers will need to bear that in mind and consider that when approaching any of the traffic calming on the road. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Van der Root?
It's Van der Kooi. So, good evening, Mayor, councillors and fellow residents. Just got a couple of questions I'd like to ask. My house backs onto the Stanton Road, and there's going to be a couple of these cushions almost straight behind my fence. Why wasn't I notified, or any residents around the area notified, why this was what the council had envisioned to do to slow down the traffic? And I'm only concerned because basically they've been putting those rubber counters on the road for years, and I've actually rang up main roads quite a few times because it's like Chinese torture. It actually exasperates the situation. I'm talking about a 15mm rubber hose. You can't sleep at night. It basically affecting. I'm actually a driver for the PTA, so a lot of this stuff you're talking about, I'm pretty aware of, and I know how these buses handle these speed humps, and a lot of the drivers won't slow down because the PTA have asked for a lot of the narrowed speed humps because the dual wheels will only hit the base of them. Now, I'm telling you, one service provides over 200 buses down Stanton Road going over that. That's only one service. Basically, are the council going to take any responsibility or liability when I have a traffic accident because I've had lack of sleep, or my daughter or my wife or anyone staying at our house, and structural damage to my property? Because there's a chicane further down the road that the buses occasionally clip, and I'm getting vibrations through my house. And now you're talking about putting two of these things right behind my fence.
Response. Director of Infrastructure Services.
I will take that on notice. There's quite a lot in that particular question, so we'll take it on notice and give a response afterwards.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, further question is, why haven't I or ratepayers been informed about what's going on?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. As I stated previously with the last questions from Ms Schaffenstein, Council resolved to install the traffic calming and amended a resolution back in February. It's my understanding that all residents who have property adjoining Stanton Road were notified of the decision to install traffic calming. So my understanding is all those who have crossovers and property on Stanton Road and would have been notified. Thank you, Worship.
Any further questions?
Sorry.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, I believe we need additional time.
I'm just letting this last question.
Yeah, just so are the council going to take any responsibility in either double glazing my windows so I can actually have a bit of a lifestyle, or taking any responsibility for lack of sleep or structural damage to my house?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I would probably suggest that would not be the case. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. We need a mover and second to extend question time. Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Marx. We need to vote. You need to vote, everybody. Please vote. Unanimous. Thank you. Right. Now we move on. Thank you very much to Adrian Bell.
My name is Adrian Bell of Redcliffe. Mayor, councillors, city staff and fellow residents, I've got a couple of questions. The first question is, recently the City of Stirling Council approved raised pedestrian crossings on a section of West Coast Highway. I regularly walk along Stanton Road and often find it difficult to cross the road. Why didn't the city take the opportunity to install raised pedestrian crossings near our schools and bus stops as part of the significant traffic calming being implemented on Stanton Road?
Mr. CEO, can you answer that?
Thank you, Worship. Unless the Director can, I'll take that on notice.
Question, please.
Second question. The latest February traffic data confirms that Mooring Street traffic volume has dropped to just 350 vehicles per day, and the average speed is now just 35 kilometres per hour. Lyle Street and Mooring Street are the only two streets with direct connectivity to Great Eastern Highway. It appears no one wants to use Mooring now because of the 5 speed humps. Do you think the traffic calming was overdone at Mooring Street?
Mr. Seer?
Based on the traffic data we had at the time, no, I don't.
My third question. Why didn't the residents of Mooring Street get any say on what type of speed calming device and how many would be installed on their street?
Mr. Seer?
Thank you, Worship. I'll need to take that on notice and consider what consultation was undertaken. Thank you.
My last question. Why doesn't the city have a public traffic calming policy?
Mr. Seer?
Thank you, Worship. I'll take that on notice. We would need to give some consideration to the content, but I'll take that question on notice and respond.
Okay, thank you.
Martin Cardoso?
Good evening. My name's Martin Cardozo of Lyle Street, Redcliffe. And just a point of clarification in relation to Mr Murphy's comment on the extent of the traffic calming on Stanton Road. The connect.belmont site clearly shows 21 coloured dots on Stanton Road. 4 of them are coloured blue, and the blue ones, when you hover over the top, and I'll just quote, they're called asphalt speed humps with shark teeth marking. So I just clarify that. So there's 4 lots of those.
We just get clarification from the Director of Infrastructure Services. Is that correct, or would you like to take that on notice?
The drawings show speed cushions, not speed humps.
I've obtained a copy of the drawings, and the drawings are actually on the Connect site.
We'll take that on notice and
Okay,
get back to
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Your first question?
Look, I'm probably rehashing a lot of things that are probably just going to be... Anyway, so question 1, why was there no community engagement prior to the approval of the Stanton Road calming?
Mr. Seer?
Thank you, Worship. I think Mr Cardozo's right. I think I've responded a number of times to that very question, and as I said, it was relating to the council resolution back in February 2023.
Next question, please.
The Stanton calming is a permanent installation of an unprecedented and extensive number of traffic calming speed humps, cushions, plateaus on a short 1.5 kilometre stretch of road. Has the city conducted any noise study to confirm the anticipated noise impact for residents of Stanton Road, 2nd Street, adjacent homes and the 2 primary schools?
Director of Infrastructure Services?
No, we have not carried out any specific noise studies, but these traffic treatments are used all over the Perth metropolitan area.
Next question, please.
Question 3. At the February 2023 OCM, city engineers made a number of comments and recommendations in relation to the Stanton Road motion put forward, best that I quote it, major upgrade works associated with Stanton Road, 2nd Street, is not recommended until completion of the TGA project and finalisation of the transport modelling project. Close quote. In March 2023, the city entered into discussions with Main Roads WA, and the project went from temporary to permanent, and went from a 300 metre section of road to the entire 1.5 kilometres. Why didn't the city come to council formally to advise of the 2 significant changes to the formal council direction? And why didn't the city follow their own recommendation to wait for the TGA project to be finalised?
Mr. Seer?
Thank you, Worship. The question in relation to the TGA Tonkin Gap project finalising was contained in that resolution from February, and it was council that moved an amendment to that to instruct the city to install the traffic calming. But what I will do is I'll take that question on notice and provide a more comprehensive response.
Thank you. My last question. Ms Cassie Rowe, MLA Belmont, member for Belmont, forwarded me an email from the city last week advising that the traffic calming proposed on Stanton could not be revoked, and I'll quote from the council, that council would not be in a position to revoke the original decision without first obtaining legal and financial advice, as detailed in this, I believe it's the local orders 15.2. Council gave a clear direction in February at the February 2023 OCM as an alternate motion for the installation of temporary calming on a small section of Stanton Road. From a technical or governance perspective, when the outcome is so substantially different from the original direction, how can Council ever be in a position to revoke a direction that it never made?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I guess we'll need to differ on that opinion. I believe that what we have progressed, as I mentioned previously in this meeting, was consistent with that resolution made in February. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you.
Very much. Move on to Debbie Ransom.
Good evening, councillors, mayor, staff and gallery. Debbie Ransom, Hay Road, Ascot. The City of Belmont Annual Report 22-23 Urban Forest Strategy states that during the winter months, 2,629 trees were planted. My questions, can the council provide an average cost per tree?
Director of Infrastructure Services.
Through the chair, I'll take that on notice.
Please.
Of the 2,629 trees that were planted, does the council keep any records of how many of those trees survived?
Good question. Director of Infrastructure Services.
Yeah, through the chair, we do have a register of every tree that is planted in the city.
So does that register have whether the tree has survived or not?
Director of Infrastructure Services.
Yes, and the register keeps a condition of all of the trees in the city.
Can you?
Next question, please.
How do we get a copy of that?
Director of Infrastructure Services.
I'll take that on notice, but I know it's on quite a large database.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We move on to Ms. G.
Right, I'm going to try and condense mine down. I've got here, which I've sent to councillors, a copy of the letter that was sent out to the people regarding 12.2, the building on Abernethy Road. In the past, residents have been informed and the letters have stated how you can put in objections, etc. The letter that was sent out about this development is actually a disgrace, and it seems like council's just wanting to slide this under the radar. I'd like to know...
I'm sorry, that's your point of view. You need to lower your tone, not lower your tone, but soften your language. I don't think it's appropriate to say that.
Okay, well, the letter just basically tells you about this development. In the past, letters that have gone out for residents' input have actually told residents how they can put their input to council. It does not say anything about that on this letter. It just tells you about the development. And most of the people out there aren't as savvy as what the people come into the gallery and you councillors are. They do not understand that they have a right to put objections in, which is why there's only probably one objection gone in about this development, and it came from me. But know this, there was other people that asked me to do it as well. So I'd like to know, when did the letter to the residents actually change?
Director of Development and Community.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, over time, as the city's planners have engaged or advertised development applications, we've received varying responses. But in the case of item 12.2 of tonight's agenda, the advertising was carried out in two parts. So the first part of the advertising was a letter to neighbors immediately joining the subject property, informing them of the development and the variations to the R-code standards that was applied in assessing the development application. And that letter included an invitation for them to make a submission on how the proposed development impacted on their properties. The wider radius of 100 meters included Ms. G's property, and that letter informed those residents in the wider area of the development proposal and gave them the opportunity to view the plans and engage or speak to a planner if they had any questions. The reason why it's done in two parts is because the assessment or the local government in making a planning decision needs to have regard for how a development directly impacts an adjoining property in order for weight to be placed on that submission. So the neighbors that are immediately adjoining would be directly impacted, whereas the other residents and property owners in the wider area would not be directly impacted, but have the opportunity to put in a submission if they wish.
Your next question, please.
Well, I'd like to add on to that one. If this is 5 stories, it doesn't just affect the property next door. Being so high, it does affect the wider area, and maybe council should be looking at how they're advertising it so that they can get the responses in and they can get a better judgment of what the people are thinking about.
Director of Development Communities, would you like to comment on that question towards the end?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the impact of any variations to height would most immediately impact on the adjoining property owners.
Next question, Ms. G. Thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to make this so I can ask all the questions. It's going to be very hard. But following on for that one, there's a 4-story built in Homewood that I never got any input in. And that directly affects me because they can look over their privacy screens. They can see, basically where I'm hanging out on my washing line, but they can invade my privacy. And I was never, ever given any input in that one. And that's affecting a lot of people in the area too. So it does affect people. You'd need to understand.
I'm sorry,
that.
I need a question.
Yeah. Okay, right. I'm going on to my next questions then. The fact that this slip road in the section that we're talking about probably won't be built in the next 15 years plus, knowing who lives on that street. And this being the second building of its kind in the same section of Abernethy Road, how are you going to, A, address the issue of multiple bins being placed out on Abernethy Road for pickup, especially as we're now going to a 3-bin system? And how are you going to address the extra traffic, considering the data, which was on your page 70, was from New South Wales in 2013. So how is that relevant to Belmont in 2024?
There's 2 parts of that question. Director of Development Communities, are you able to answer that tonight?
Yes, I will, Mr. Mayor. Through you, with regard to the waste management arrangements, the report outlines that it is a satisfactory arrangement. The arrangement has been considered by the city's waste services team, and the development is capable of the appropriate or adequate bin service arrangements. With regard to traffic, the New South Wales RTA standard is a standard that's accepted by the industry. There's no specific standard for WA, and that has been widely used as the traffic standard in considering trip generations for development.
Thank you. Your next question, please.
Well, just on that question and that answer, this is a
No, sorry, we can't keep on debating. Just your
I'm
next
not
question,
debating.
please.
I'm going to ask the next thing
Go
about
ahead,
it.
please. Your next question.
It's the second building, so this is a compounding issue that's going to get worse the more buildings you put on each section, is what I was trying to make out. The next thing is privacy. You've said 1.6 screens on a 5-story, which I don't know how you're going to allow 5 stories when council told me it should only be 4, but 1.6 and 1.72. Not everybody that's in the NDIS will be in wheelchairs. I can look over a 1.6. And so I'd like to know how you're going to address the privacy, including on the balconies.
Director of Development and Communities, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the standards for privacy and overlooking, including the 1.6 height standard, is outlined in the state planning policy, the R codes.
Thank you. Your last question?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you said about overshadowing, and you made a comment last week about it, the back one on Homewood, it was only a veggie patch and it would change in the future. Is the Mayor aware that it's someone's garden? And in today's world, with plenty of people who are doing self-sufficiency since COVID happened, things should be judged on today and not the future. So I'd like to ask, are you going to judge on today and not think about the future? It's what's happening today and it's that's changing lives.
It'll be up to each councillor. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Don't know why.
We move on to Vaughan Barker.
This is through the Mayor. As the standard panels in the matter of Bragg versus Jenny Davis had very clear and meticulous instructions about how she should apologise to me, and as no one in the public gallery in the last council meeting could hear her apology, is the council now going to publish the apology in the letters, that the apology in the papers that is clearly outlined in the findings?
I'll get a response from the Director of Corporate and Governance, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The apology by Councillor Davis at the February 24 Ordinary Council meeting was delivered as required by and consistent with the terms of the orders of the Standards Panel. Further, the WA Department of Local Government, Sports, Cultural Interests viewed Councillor Davis's apology online, and the department has not advised that it has any concerns with the apology.
I didn't hear the apology, and it was to me. Why should I have to go online? She had to stand up in the council chambers and apologise to me.
Next question,
That's what
please.
Through the Mayor, as a duty of care, does the City of Belmont have a drug and alcohol policy for senior members of staff and councillors who might have such a drug and alcohol addiction?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I'll take that on notice.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We move on to Paul Hitt.
Paul Hitt, that's my name. The radio station 6PR this morning aired the complaint against Councillor Davis and the subsequent findings. Will Councillor Davis resign?
Mr. CEO.
I listened to that broadcast this morning. The City and Councillor Davis has complied with the requirements of the Standards Panel, and as far as the City is concerned, this matter is concluded. Thank you, Worship.
Question.
Question 2. Councillor Davis, if Councillor Davis pursues any person through the courts system in relation to recent findings concerning her, will the City of Belmont be liable for any legal costs which Councillor Davis might incur?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. We have a policy that covers that, and we will certainly ensure that the policy is applied.
Mm-hmm.
Question, please.
Councillor 5. Councillors currently, or Councillor question 3, is currently reviewing its policy on advertising within the City of Belmont. Is that correct?
Mr. CEO.
I'm sorry, can I just seek clarification, sort of what the question was? Advertising, did you say?
It's advertising in media, external advertising.
Your Worship, I'll take that on notice and confirm.
Yeah. Well, I therefore ask, if you can't tell me now, is it appropriate for a sitting councillor to have their face or advertisement on a rubbish bin, on rubbish bin holders?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I'll take that on notice.
Another question which concerns me. The state government put or requested ratios from the cities within the Perth metropolitan area about pushing their urban density ratios up. Has the City of Belmont met their requirements, or has it greatly exceeded it?
Director of Development and Communities, are you able to answer that?
I'll take that question on notice, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Pitt.
Yes. For my final question, as I noted earlier, the Stanton decision in the February OCM was for temporary calming in 2023 on a short segment of road. The what, when and where of that motion is clearly different to what the city is doing. Can the city provide guidance on the implementation of council motions? Is this the only circumstance where a council motion can be so loosely interpreted, or do all motions of council have this much leeway?
Mr. C, are you able to answer that?
Thank you, Worship. I'll take that on notice.
Thank you.
I close. Rosalind?
Sorry, I was late. My leg is short. I didn't walk.
Please go ahead.
I try to be short, but I have a lot of questions. My question is if the council really apply the rule of transparency, or when they giving answer to question asked, instead they going around the bureaucracy and reply they are really minimize everything or not really reply with a complete answer in many cases, at least to me. At the last meeting of the rate pie, I asked one question, and it was regarding the pie for the councillor when they come and they're getting a bonus when they shall come and not when it's not. But they're being informed, they're being passed last year on the budget of the last year, 2023, it being approved, and instead to have a payment for the presence, it be put on the budget, it being approved by all your councillors, or the one that was here anyway, that they get a bonus instead annually on top of the payment. I think the reply I got is not really clear. At the end of the story, I know how much the council, the mayor, everybody get because it's there, but I don't think it's fair, like I say at the council, at the meeting on the right pie, somebody, and I'm not pointing out to Mr. there or somebody there. In general, the question is that law for local council was to promote councillor to come at the meeting. Now, I understand councillor, they can do work home and not coming at the same get involved, but that originally was a good...
I'll get your response from the Director of Corporate and Governance. Are you able to answer that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All elected members are entitled to sitting fees and certain allowances as provided for under the Local Government Act, and they are determined, the quantum that is, by the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal. The budget, which is adopted in June of each year, puts an amount in there, and those councillors and the mayor receive those payments on a regular basis. There is no such thing as a bonus for elected members. They receive sitting fees, an ICT allowance, and the mayor and the deputy mayor receive what they call a mayoral and a deputy mayoral allowance. But in no circumstances, and there's never been a circumstance, that they receive a bonus payment or anything else like a bonus payment.
Thank you very much. Your next question?
Yeah, I'm getting there. And the question was on the legislation of 0.5.98. When the council meet, they can be paid for the presence. And the reply I have now, I interpret a different way. But we go to the next one. I also asked a question at council meeting regarding the issue with the construction of the hub, and I have to say, I had spoken with Mr. Murphy in private here after council meeting regarding the slab. One slab there is down, and when you go up the stair, and it's down too much. I work in the construction, big building too. We multiplex all organism, big builder. I know a little bit and pass on information. When I ask the reply to the question, reply on the minute you have now approving probably tonight, it's giving nothing. It's just giving, the council is dealing with the builder to fix the problem, order like the rain coming in, etc. But the point is, I know already that.
But we need a question.
The question is, can I have better information? What my request was to have inside what they propose to fix the issue.
Okay, so Director of Infrastructure Services, able to answer that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. There's been considerable discussions between ourselves and the builder on this matter, and a number of investigations on that. They're still ongoing, and the discussions are still ongoing, and it's a contractual matter, so the details of that would remain confidential for now.
We'll need a move and a second. We've gone past 7:30. Have a move and a second to extend question time. Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Marks. We'll need to vote. Still need two people to vote. Still two people to vote. One person to vote. Carried. Next question, please. Your third question.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is not, it's a question regarding the apology being given by one of the councillors here. I didn't have the opportunity to listen to CSPR, and probably the council is so legal, but I point out when we have the meeting here, the council, all the people here standing here cannot hear what she say for one reason or the other. I got my hearing aid on. I can hear you well now. I cannot hear her. But when we ask to be repeated, being refused, and the employer by the council and Mr.
Question,
Andrews, Mr. Darwin, he said to me, no, we hear very well, I hear very well, but I can say complimenting, got an extreme good hearing.
I need a question, sorry.
The question is, when I'm not reproaching you as a mayor, you know, you just start the job as a mayor. When people on this side, and they're interacting, even when the council meeting, because they cannot hear, is not, we shall have the right to can understand what is being said. If we raise a hand or say something, it should be asked why.
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. As I've responded earlier this evening, the apology was given in accordance with the directions from the Standards Panel, and the City considers this matter to be concluded. Should you wish to listen to that apology, you can view that on the City's YouTube channel. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. There being no more questions, I close public question time at 7:41. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Ordinary Council meeting held on the 27th of February. Are there any questions on the minutes, please? May I have a move and a second to confirm the minutes as true and accurate? Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Skula. We'll need to vote. Voting is now open. Carried. Thank you. Voting is now closed and it's carried. Move on to 6.2, matrix for the agenda briefing forum on the 19th of March. Are there any questions on the matrix? May I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Davis. Voting is now open. Please use your buttons on the microphone screen. Carried. Thank you very much. 7. Questions by members on which due notice has been given. There are none.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
One person hasn't voted.
You may have pressed it twice. I'm not too sure. Thank you very much. Questions by members on which due notice has been given without discussion. There are none. Questions by members without notice. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, my question is to do with that at Ascot at the Esplanade. 12 months ago, work was supposed to commence on the river up to the Ascot jetty, and nothing's happened, and the residents are very concerned of asking a lot of questions lately. It's worse than it was last year. When is it going to start?
I believe it's in the executive report from the CEO, but I'll hand it over to the Director of Infrastructure Services.
Yeah, I'll take that question on notice.
CEO might be able to answer.
Yeah, I think from memory, and I agree with the Director, we'll take it on notice and clarify, but from memory there were some issues with regard to the Department of Biodiversity and Conservation with regard to the design and a few other things to do with the foreshore restoration of that area, but I will take it on notice and provide an update.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Response to questions taken on notice, there are none. Questions by members without notice, there are none. New business of an urgent nature, approved by the presiding member or by decision. There's no. Is there any new business of urgent nature? I believe there's none. Business adjourned from the previous meeting, there's none. Reports of committee, standing committee, audit and risk, held on the 19th of February. Are there any questions on the minutes? There are none. May I have a move and a second that the minutes of the Standing Committee Audit and Risk meeting held on the 19th of February be received and noted. Moved by Councillor Kulczycki, seconded by Councillor Sakula. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone. Carried unanimously. Executive Committee held on the 26th of February 2024. Are there any questions on the minutes? May I have a move and a second that the minutes of the Executive Committee meeting held on the 26th of February 2024 be received and noted. Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Davis. Voting is now open. Please use your buttons on the microphone screen. Councillor Ryan? Councillor Ryan? He's pressed it?
I think it's a short system.
There you go. And you agree with that vote? Councillor Ryan? Thank you very much. Thank you. Carried unanimously. 12. Reports of administration. Withdrawn items. Are there any items to be withdrawn? I'll go through each one. 12.1, Local Planning Policy number 12. We have 12.2, Community Home. Councillor Sessions withdrawing that. 12.3, the Community Sporting and Facility Fund Grant application. 12.4, request for rate exemption. 12.5, March budget review. 12.6, terms of reference, standing committee. Councillor Segula, is your hand up? Oh, sorry, no, nobody. 12.7, terms of reference, executive committee. 12.8, extraordinary election for South Ward. Annual electors meeting. Councillor Sessions. Accounts for payments for February. Monthly financial report for February. And internal audit report. So, may I have a mover and second to adopt the balance of the reports en bloc by an absolute majority decision, with exception of items 12.2 and 12.9, I believe. Terrific. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Sessions. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone screen. Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll now move to 12.2. Councillor Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the officer recommendation as printed, but with the addition of point 2, which I believe has been distributed to all councillors.
Thank you. We'll just need to get you a seconder. That's okay. You've explained it. Now we need a seconder. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Take 2. So I support the officer recommendation as printed, but with the addition of point 2 on the screen now. The use of the land for community home is limited to the provision of specialist disability accommodation. Community home is a broad category, and I want to ensure that this development is used for the purpose intended. I have also listened to community feedback, and as a result, I have requested an information forum between officers and councillors to address how we approach residents and engage with the community on planning matters going forward to maximise transparency and engagement.
Thank you. Councillor Kulczycki.
Thank you, Mayor Rossi. So, with regards to this item, it presents a development application that Council ought to approve. Whilst there are improvements that can be suggested for any development, what is presented by this application is reflective of the vision for the town centre policy area, which dates back 16 years. The proposed development meets the statutory requirements that pertains to it. It is pleasing to see a proposal that incorporates a rooftop terrace and landscaping that provides amenity to its prospective residents and improves the sustainability attributes of the development. I hope this helps drive further quality development to be considered by developers who have historically reserved this for the likes of the western suburbs. This development, among others, will revitalise this area of Belmont, which is deserving of renewal. It is also particularly important that there are housing options to people of all abilities in Belmont, so that everybody has the opportunity to live a lifestyle that is supported by convenient proximity to local amenities. This has been addressed by this proposal. The City's Planning Department ought to be commended on their thoroughness in advocating better outcomes throughout the approval process, namely the Design Review Panel for their work in collaboration with the developer to improve the design quality of this proposed development over 3 meetings as outlined in the report to Council. The conditions are also sound and robust, demonstrating appropriate controls are in place to achieve a high quality outcome for both before and after construction. As an example, this is highlighted in particular by condition 8 of the approval. On this basis, I'll be supporting this item and I encourage Council to consider this also.
Thank you. Anyone speaking against? Councillor Sikula.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I just say at the outset that I'd like to acknowledge the work that the council officers have done in working in a very effective way with the developer. I think the quality of their work as always is exceptional. I rise to speak against this this motion for a number of reasons. So there's nothing wrong with the actual design of the development itself. It looks very nice, it's very fresh, it's very stylish. And yes, it would certainly enhance the area. The concerns that I have relate to the size of the lot itself. It's far too small for that type of development. It doesn't take into consideration the evolving needs of those individuals that are actually going to live in that environment. And that's something that we need to consider. These individuals will have a range of needs across their lifespan, and they need the flexibility to live in an environment that is going to meet those needs. The issue of the privacy notion is an ongoing one, and whenever you have a development more than two stories, you certainly invoke that concern. In this case, you'll have 4 to 5, and I know His Worship mentioned last week, I believe, and I think I've got this correct, where he talked about the actual screening in order to try to address that issue. So basically, whatever the screening that you have, it'll be either that you won't be able to see inside out, and so therefore the amount of light that comes in is going to be an issue, or you'll still be able to see out going in, and so therefore that's an issue as well. If you have families that live in the surrounding homes, then that is a concern, because irrespective of what type of screening that you're going to put, that always will pose a risk for families. The overshadowing, I'm not necessarily subscribing to the information that was put forward in terms of the type of overshadowing in the report. I do believe the overshadowing has been played down. I think the overshadowing is going to be more than what is being put forward, and of course that will have an impact. During the last 30 years, the amount of traffic that is on Abernethy Road has certainly grown and will keep growing during that period of time. I don't believe that the counters that have been used will effectively give an indication to the type of traffic that is going to be using on that road. And certainly as more development occurs in that area, the amount of traffic is going to increase, which leads me to my next point, and that is about a slip road. Now, slip roads have been put forward as an important strategy to address coming out onto main roads. That was certainly the case on Orrong Road, and is certainly the case on Abernethy Road. So from Gabriel Street to where former Councillor G's home is, right through to Fulham Street, there will be a need for a slip road. But unless if individuals are prepared to knock out half of their lounge room, I can't imagine that slip road occurring. The issues that I raised from an earlier development up towards Fulham Street are similar to the issues that we face now. So if I quote, or if I refer to the Erskine family that live at number 352 Abernethy Road, if a slip road was to be included as part of their plot, that would come right up until their front door, and I can't imagine that occurring. So, and that would be the same with the family that lives at 354 and 356 and 358. So you really need to have a slip road going effectively from Gabriel Street right through to Fulham Street, and the way the developments are and the families that are currently there, you'll be waiting 30 years. And the issues then are, of course, been a health and safety issue. So how do individuals, how are they going to reverse or come out, onto a main road where the traffic is going to increase? I don't believe as well, and this is, I guess, through my own experiences, I don't believe that this development reflects the standards that are inherent in terms of the NDIS, and I do not believe that that the development reflects the elements and the intent of the Disability Discrimination Act of 1992. And I think those two would need to drive any type of a decision in that space. I believe the concept is very good. I believe the concept is something that is in need, but it's just in the wrong spot. That is not a place. You can't have that type of a development with individuals that require a certain level of care to have to live in that type of environment. And there needs to be a little bit more thought around the best places within our city for that type of a development to actually occur. So based on those concerns, and I understand that these concerns have been addressed in various ways, but I guess I'm highlighting those as areas that will impact the residents that live in that area, plus the actual neighbours as well. So that's why I would advocate and argue strongly for us to reconsider that development and vote against the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sakula. Anyone in for? Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this is one of the more interesting developments we've had for a while, having just listened to Councillor Sakula. He certainly found it interesting. And controversial. The 2 or 3 points of controversy that need to be looked at carefully. One is the public consultation, which we've heard Councillor Sessions say she's going to bring up so that we can discuss it in a more private situation. But I don't think the just advertising to the people straight opposite or behind is enough. But we'll discuss that later. The 5th story is a very controversial and interesting point. Is it a 5th story or is it only 4 stories? The Director of Planning has said to me that it is 4 stories, and the reason it's 4 stories is that the main building is in actual fact only 4 stories. The rest is a private sector for community consultation and community land that people can join together on and see each other and be able to sit in a garden. I, in actual fact, think this is a great thing, which we've heard from a previous councillor. I think that this form of private open space, I guess you'd call it, or community open space, is something that we'll see more of. I think that it is a great thing in so much as, especially with these particular type of people who have got problems, it means that they can move to a section where they can be among themselves without anyone worrying them, and also be in a section where someone can be there and keep an eye on them on all occasions. So I think it's a good thing. Is it a fifth story? I don't think so. I think that it's an add-on, and I think if it went before the JDAP and the SAT, they would agree with that. I think they would find it as 4 stories plus public space or private space. So this is of some controversy. As far as the actual overlooking and the visual privacy, the overlooking and visual privacy, I think, is taken care of, especially on the fifth area, the private open space, where they have a type of balustrading built around it with a degree of landscaping inside it, which would mean that you cannot overlook people. It's just impossible. From what I saw from in the agenda and what I've found out since, I don't think that there's any problem with overlooking on any area or side, even though they've moved it to the front. So there can't be any overlooking out the back. I don't think there's any overlooking problems whatsoever. As far as overshadowing, I don't think there's any overshadowing problems. I think the mathematics involved there is pretty secure these days, and it suggests there's no overshadowing. So I don't think that's a problem. The traffic, I've heard Councillor Sakua talking about how difficult it is with this traffic. The increase in traffic will be 0.1 of 1%. 0.1 of 1%. I just find that worrying about that sort of increase is silly. The slip road, Councillor Sakula quite rightly said it will be 30 years before it's implemented properly, and maybe longer. But at some stage or another, you have to do this sort of thing. We remember the easements that were taken in front of shops and so forth on Great Eastern Highway, and we all said these would never be implemented. Lo and behold, they're there. So will it take 30 years? Yes, you're right, Councillor Sakula, it will. The next thing of interest is, where do we put these sort of developments where we need a reasonably large amount of people or room for people? Do we just use them as one-storey places dotted around, or would we put them together? To put them together, we have to have R100 or somewhere more, maybe. The only places where this exists is on main roads and around the city centre. So unless we make a decision that no, we will only have 1 or 2 stories for these people, they have to go on a main road or they have to go somewhere close to the city centre. So I don't know what how we handle this if we consider that it's too dangerous for them on a main road, or we consider that the city centre is probably too dangerous from a crime prospect or something like that. Where do we put them? I think they're doing the best they can at the moment. So just all over, I think that this is a reasonably good type of development. I think that if we went or sent this to a JDAP or it went to the SAT would agree that it's a good development and something that is, I would think in time to come will be well thought of. So thank you.
Anybody else in for? Anyone against? Any other speakers at all? If there's none, I'll speak. Thank you very much. It's noted that the subject site and adjoining properties are zoned with flexible R20, R50, R100 coding, which is intended to accommodate mixed, medium and high density residential developments. So there should be no surprise that this development is before us. I believe the rooftop garden patio will be a haven for those who live there. And why shouldn't those with high needs have the very best? Also, to ensure that it's reserved for specialist disability accommodation is the appropriate outcome. And I thank Councillor Sessions for this addition. But I have concerns. My concerns relate to the 3.5 metres versus 6 metre setback, which was expected, especially when there's no guarantee that everyone will develop to the higher R100 code. Also, if you refer to page 67, it talks about the adjoining open space area is categorised by an outbuilding and planting. Well, we know that area is going to be evolving and changing, and then it has a sentence there that says, therefore, screening is not required for these windows. Well, we need to plan for the future. There should be screening. To me, that I would prefer this to be deferred so we can get that screening. Also, it states, one of the principles was that the word I heard was there's no overshadowing. Well, the design panel advised that the capacity for landscaping to survive at the rear of the development is a concern as a result of overshadowing for future development. So there is a problem. So with these issues, I will not be voting for it. Thank you. Back to Councillor Sessions to sum up.
No more to say, Mr. Mayor.
We have the motion up on the screen with an additional point 2. We're going to vote, just waiting for the voting to open. Voting is now opened. Is away. And it's carried 4-2 with Councillor Ryan has stepped out of the room and left. Thank you. To the next item, the annual electors meeting. (12.9) withdrawn by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Marx. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to move the officer recommendation, but just talk to this item as well, if I could. Motion 1, the fortnightly and monthly rates. I support this idea and will address this further when the budget comes before Council in a few months. For motion 2, I personally go through each elector's motion individually and discuss them with officers, so I believe they are given respect and consideration. For motion 3, I don't support this motion. The City has never hosted a public celebration for Australia Day. They support the RSL in hosting an event by way of donation, which has continued, but unfortunately the RSL building is not big enough to support the large numbers of new citizens we're now hosting for citizenship ceremonies. That said, I will be putting an item forward to an information forum for councillors and officers to discuss supporting the RSL further by way of publicity and advertising for the RSL standalone event. Then motion 4, I believe this is already covered for each newly elected member after each election, and all current councillors are invited to attend the training. It's also something that councillors can request individually anytime should they want to. And with motion 5, I'm confident that the City are continually adapting to support all members of our community.
Thank you. Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I support what we've just heard. I think that's a pretty good summation. I especially support the idea that it's been unfortunate that we can't continue with the citizenship ceremonies at the RSL on the 25th of January, but moving it one day ahead I don't think affects it really, except for the fact that it's left the RSL without any real publicity that they're holding a dinner. And whereas we support the RSL's dinner on that day, that I agree with what you've just heard from Councillor Sessions. We need possibly to put some sort of publicity in place. Other than that, I think Councillor Sessions has got it pretty right. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak on the annual electors meeting? None? Go back to councillor Sessions? No? We'll now vote. Voting is now open. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Reports by the Chief Executive Officer. Are there any requests for leave of absence? None that we're aware of. Matters for which the meeting may be closed. Notice of motion, there are none. 14, matters of which the meeting may be closed. I will now close the meeting in accordance with section 5.232E3 of the Local Government Act 1995. May I have a move and a second to go behind closed doors? Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Davies. We'll need to vote. Voting is now open. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Please pause the live stream. 14.1, rate penalty write-off. That council accepts the officer recommendation in relation to this item. Moved Councillor Sessions, second Councillor Marx, carried unanimously. 14.2. Staff matter. Chief Executive Officer interim review for 2023 and 2024. That council accept the officer recommendation in relation to this item. Carried unanimously. And we moved Councillor Davis, seconded Councillor Marx. Thank you. Closure. There being no further business to conduct, I wish to wish everyone a peaceful and joyful Easter break for the 4 days, and I close the meeting at 8:20 p.m. Thank you very much.